Welcome back to Decaf. Mark, I'm not wearing a team shirt today, but Mark is in his jazz gear as always.
Not
Um,
always. I boycotted them for like 2 weeks.
you did boycott them for 2 weeks. I forgot about
I'm
that.
back now.
It's been 2 years of just jazz t-shirts, and so 2 weeks was merely a blip on my radar.
Also, we have like five guys playing in the Olympics. I'm cheering for them. None of them on Team USA, which we'll talk about later. So I'm actually cheering for the other countries in that matchup.
Mark, where's your patriotism?
Not for Team USA. I'm done with those guys. We'll talk about that later. I don't like any of those guys.
I know I have some thoughts about it as well. But first, before we talk about that, let's talk about some other matters of international importance, namely the Cubans. So this weekend, Cuba. I went to Cuba years ago, loved it, thought it was so much fun, did not enjoy spending money there because I did not want to support a communist economy. But I'm a big fan of the Cubans just deciding that they were sick of communism. I mean, as America's deciding to get more into the socialist game, Cuba's like, hey, we tried it and our lives suck. And honestly, I'm all for it. Way to go, Cubans. March for that freedom, baby.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is that and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's easy for us to march for stuff here. We don't have to worry about, getting killed. We don't have to worry about these people are like putting their lives at risk by marching for freedom. This is not the same thing as a rally, a rally here.
Right.
Like that's, you're safe, nothing's going to happen to you. It's like, it's protected speech and everything. Like for them to do that, they are literally putting their lives at risk. And you can tell how important freedom is that they're willing to actually, put everything on the line just to show people that they're being mistreated there.
I know things are really shaken up in the Caribbean these days. The president of Haiti being assassinated, and now the Cubans are marching. Like things are really shaken up down there, and you have to wonder. I haven't kept as much of tabs on it as I probably should, but you have to wonder what has happened that has made people say, we're tired of corrupt government, we're tired of communism. And, I'll never agree with violence, but I do agree with people marching to get their point across. And these guys are done with what they've been getting for the last however many years.
And it is, I think it's interesting that, the Biden administration has basically said, if you come from Cuba, you will not be allowed in here. But it seems like they're open to other people coming in, maybe because the Cubans aren't their voter base. I don't know the answer because they tend to vote Republican when they come here. But it's just it's an interesting issue where you kind of have the left that seems to be very, pro immigration, and like now they're like, oh no Cubans, like we don't want that. And then the right, which kind of seems to be the opposite way, like, oh yeah, come on in, like you're escaping that in Hong Kong.
You don't like communism? Come on in.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, but yeah, it's great to see that. And there is a reason that, that when Cubans come here, they vote a certain way. It's because like they want the farthest thing from this communist regime they can have. And they know something's wrong, and it's awesome because like you have to wonder, would you have the guts to go out and march if you knew you could die?
No. I'm just gonna be honest. No.
If I was old, maybe if I felt like it, but it's like a tough thing.
You're like, a lot of life ahead of me. I
know. Although it's not much of a life there, but are you willing to like literally put your life at risk? It's hard. Under a communist regime, it's not much of a life.
Are you saying that I don't have much of a life?
Oh no. I'm saying for the Cuban people. No, also I agree. You don't have much of a life. I was saying that they don't. It's not like they have a real life anyway. It's like they're under this communist regime. So it's like, you know what? This is worth it. But it's still a brave thing to do. So I give them credit for that.
That's so true. I remember when I was there, we were riding in a van back from the airport, and it was me and one of my American friends, and the Cuban police pulled up next to us, and they're like military police. They have the red star on the side of their vehicles, and our driver turned around and said, sit very still and don't draw attention. Like it's a beautiful place, but it's a really scary place. And anything that they can do to improve the quality of their lives and just get their voices heard on the international stage, I'm all for it. I think it's.
And you went there. You went there, if I remember correctly, pretty much right after it opened, didn't you?
Like a couple weeks after, like we didn't know if we would be able to get in. Like,
yeah, I don't think I would have done that. You have more guts than me on that one for sure.
It was a little bit dangerous, but it was a great experience to have, especially now that we're seeing what's going on. Being able to speak to it as it was, it's very, very humbling to live in America and know that we have the freedoms that we do have. Let's bring things a little closer to home. So Ron and Jason actually wrote a policy brief recently comparing the responses to COVID of freer, more open states like Georgia and Tennessee and more closed states like Kentucky and Michigan. So let's rewind it, take it back a little bit. at the beginning of the pandemic last year, the Kentucky governor thought it would be fun to compare responses of Kentucky and Tennessee. Kentucky was very shut down, Tennessee was pretty open. And he said, basically, don't go to Tennessee unless you want to die. Okay. That was dramatic. Then we got wind of that, and we didn't like that Tennessee was being painted in this light. And so we decided to start collecting data and see if over time his extreme announcements were warranted or a little too dramatic, like I said. And what we found was it was too dramatic. Tennessee, that prioritized lives and livelihoods, is now thriving in the response of how our economy's doing, having prioritized both. And Tennessee and Kentucky's still lagging behind in its economic recovery. And what we saw was one response that was solely focused on public health and safety, and another response that balanced that with the economy. And the one that Tennessee took that balanced both actually saw better returns on both sides. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and we didn't actually just do it because of his comments. I mean, we wanted to actually see which
Sure.
responses worked and which didn't. 'Cause we also compared Georgia and Michigan to that, which is kind of Georgia's very similar to us. And
Yeah.
really the results, which I mean, you'll see the full report, you can see the full numbers will be released next week sometime. But they showed that essentially the COVID cases, the amount of people got COVID was essentially the same in all four of the places, despite two being completely shut down and two that were not. I mean, I don't think exactly, but very close. But you can see the economic impact of what it cost, the unemployment rate that people gave up looking for jobs in Kentucky and Michigan. It was awful. And Georgia and Tennessee both had much more stable numbers. And it's still, there's job losses, but not even close to what it was. And I know that even, I guess it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that our unemployment, the people who asked for unemployment insurance was like the lowest it's been in forever. And part of that's because we also stopped taking the $300 federal unemployment, extra unemployment thing
Yes.
for COVID. So it's a cool report. We're kind of finalizing it now, so you get to see it, but you can see all the specifics. But it does show there's a lot more. People kept talking about how, these states want to kill people. It's like the numbers essentially were the same of people who got COVID cases, which is all you can really control when you're talking about that.
Right.
But the economic numbers were drastically different. And especially between, Tennessee and Kentucky, where right next to each other, same type of population. I mean, ours is bigger, but like same type. And it was a substantial difference. So it's a great report. We're excited for everyone to read it next week.
I know. Yeah. One thing that you said that I want to be sure we touch on before we move on is it's not just unemployment, it's the labor force participation numbers. People who are not even looking for jobs. So, unemployment measures people who are looking for jobs who can't find one. When people drop out of the workforce completely, that's not reflected in unemployment numbers, the numbers that we hear about on the news all the time. That's reflected in like labor force participation numbers. And there are some startling statistics that you'll start seeing here on our Facebook page that that came out of our study, which shows how Tennessee's labor force participation is dramatically different from Kentucky's after the responses were so different. So I'm really looking forward to getting that out there because it just goes to show that lives and livelihoods, prioritizing both, ultimately leads to better outcomes for all. So we've harped on it for a year
And
now.
it's one more thing. I want to say one more thing, but it's important to remember, not just because of what happened, but it's like when something similar happened in the future and you
Yeah.
have these same people, it's like, you need to use these data points because this is something that look what actually happened. Because guess what? People on one side think that what they did was right, people on the other side think what they did was right. But if you actually have numbers to show that, next time it happens, you're like, well, look, we have this. You can choose to ignore it if you want, but like we have these numbers to show.
Yes, yes, exactly. And that segues into our next topic perfectly. Did I read somewhere that Tokyo is not allowing fans at the Olympics?
I think so. That sounds right.
That is so sad. That is so sad that they're not going to allow
Or it's
fans.
limited fans or something like that.
I'm pretty sure it's no fans.
Yeah, it might be no fans.
That's so sad. I wish that they were hosting the Olympics here in Nashville because we would
Oh
have
gosh.
fans. I was at a concert just
You
recently.
you do not wish we were hosting the Olympics in Nashville. We want to be able to move for like 3 weeks.
That's so true. I mean, it would be fun to go though. I remember my parents went to the ones in Atlanta and they said that it was the time of their lives.
I would have sold my apartment for about $5,000 a night and get out of here if that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have gone home back to Alabama and let everybody come stay in my house too. So Team USA is, I think, the biggest or the second biggest delegation that the US has ever sent, more women than men for the first time, I think, ever. But the basketball team, the one team that Mark cares about. Okay, first of all, let's just put out there what we really care about in the Olympics. I will be watching diving, swimming, gymnastics, the track events, not the field events, the track events, and golf. Mark, what do you care about?
just basketball. I mean,
Okay, just basketball.
I will say that one of the moments of my life that I remember is like me and my mom late at night watched that. You're too young to remember it probably, but that Carrie Strug when she like broke. She was the gymnastics girl from the U.S. She like broke her foot
Broke
and
her
then
ankle and
won.
didn't
Yeah,
vault anyway.
I know, and then and won. Yeah, I remember like it made the U.S. win.
I remember we were watching, my mom and I were here the other day, watch one of our favorite things to do is Olympics. And since I've moved to Nashville, we don't get to watch sports as much as often. So we got up early when she was here visiting and watched the men's gymnastics trials while we drank our coffee on the 4th of July. And they kept replaying the clip of her coach carrying her off the mat after she competed in vault from that. It was absolutely wild. So I love to watch gymnastics. I love to watch Simone Biles. But since you only care about basketball, I'll leave all of my Olympic talk for the next 3 weeks because Team USA is not quite living up to expectations so far.
The huge favorites. I mean, you have literally, 10, 15 of the best players in the NBA that played on this team versus a bunch of guys. And it hasn't started yet, but they lost a kind of an exhibition match to Nigeria. They were a 30-point favorite. Jazz player Mayo Oni is on Nigeria, so that was good. Hey. Then they went out and they're like, okay, it's an exhibition game. That's insane. They lost that. And all their like Kevin Durant, everyone was doing bad. Then they go out the next day and they lost to Australia and Jazz player Joe Ingles. So the Jazz are doing well. And they did win their last one, but it was against Argentina, who's like 0-3. So they were like these. It was supposed to be kind of a foregone conclusion that they were going to win. The next lowest person, the next highest odds were like 12-1. They were like minus 1,000. So it's not even supposed to be closed. And they have struggled mightily so far. And now like people have some real like concern, some heartburn about this thing. It should have been an easy gold medal that it might not be. And so it's interesting to see. And Greg Popovich, the coach.
Like, did they just go to Tokyo and party and they're like all hungover now? Like, what's the deal?
So the excuse is these guys are the best players in the world, but they haven't played together. So they don't have that like team structure that some of the other teams, like, if you're, because I mean, a lot of these guys aren't in the NBA, so they played for their country teams for the past 6 years, but it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, 2 embarrassing losses. Australia is not too bad, but Nigeria is not good. They were a 30-point underdog for a reason. So it's really concerning. And the captain of the woke police, Greg Popovich, is their coach. So I gotta be honest, like, I always cheer for the USA. I don't really like the guys in the team, and I like the Jazz players. I'm not cheering for them in basketball. I don't want them to win.
Yeah, I don't know if they deserve it after that. I mean, I'll always cheer.
And it's all the people who are like just always talking about politics and like I'm just annoyed by it, and I'm just done with it. I mean, I'm cheering for, I don't know, probably Nigeria or Australia. Those are the two. I like them. They have a Jazz player on them. They work hard. I always cheer for the US, but not in basketball. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I kind of don't blame you there. I mean, I'll always cheer for the U.S., but the professional basketball in the U.S. has gotten so woke that I'm just like, you guys need to get your priorities straight. Instead of getting out there and making social justice messages, practice. Yep. Just shoot some free throws, people. Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm excited.
And no Jazz players. If Donovan Mitchell would have played, I might be thinking about it, but there's no Jazz players in the team, so I got to cheer for France or Nigeria or somebody like that.
Behind France.
Yeah, the Stifle Tower, Rudy Gobert is on that team. Also the coolest nickname in sports.
Yeah, that is a really cool nickname.
He blocks a lot of shots, so it makes sense, and he's from France.
I didn't know that was a thing, but that probably is one of the coolest nicknames I have actually ever heard. I'll save all my Olympics commentary for the next few weeks because
I'll not talk at all, so we can do that.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about the Olympics the next few weeks because Mark has silenced me today on the British Open and on Wimbledon. I'm not going to talk about them and saving my cred to talk about.
I like how your sports section is just talking about things that aren't real sports. That's what you want to do. Golf and soccer and tennis and weird Olympic sports.
Okay, it's all sports. Somebody back me up here. If you're listening to this, back me up here. Golf and tennis are in fact sports.
They are sports. I mean, I felt like they're sports.
Wimbledon is like the event.
In like the UK, nobody cares in America.
Oh my gosh, everyone.
Their ratings probably get less ratings from that than like a NASCAR race or like an NBA preseason game. I mean, I guarantee it. Like the ratings are probably awful for that in the US.
Okay, well, we hosted a brunch at our house Sunday morning and we had the TVs playing Wimbledon in every room because it was that important.
Because you're trying to be bougie is why.
No, because it's important. And the guy from Italy who won, very handsome.
Who won?
I mean, he came in second. Novak Djokovic won, and then Matt, I can't pronounce his last name, came in second, and he is very, very cute.
Don't care. But yes, no, nobody really watches. Your household maybe, but otherwise not really. The British Open people watch. It's boring, but people do watch. I'll give you that. But
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm pumped about it. People watch it. Mark just likes to.
I actually bet on. I had a free bet. I bet on Bryson DeChambeau to win.
Gross.
That's $900 if he wins.
Sorry, I know that's a hot take. I just don't like him.
No, I mean, I think everyone hates him, don't they? Isn't that kind of his thing?
So my mom loves him.
Really?
My mom thinks he's very cute and very sweet and very smiley, and she likes his demeanor.
Oh, I think my dad likes him too, but I think everyone else hates him. Like people talk trash on him all the time.
I think our generation hates him. And then the Brooks Bryson feud was just like.
And ESPN has really taken off on like Team Brooks on that, it seems like.
Yeah, but it's like everyone else is like, these are two players that everyone hates. So like, let's just let them eat each other alive and then see what happens.
I know. So I'm not really, I don't watch golf and I don't care about this, but it seems like Brooks is kind of annoying. Like he just like always wants to talk about him. Like, it's like he's obsessed with this guy.
Brooks, Bryson, and Patrick Reed. Let's just put them all three in a room and see which one comes out alive. Like the world is only big enough for one of them.
Patrick Reed's like that, the bro, right? Like the
Sure.
fraternity bro is like
a shark tooth necklace years ago while he played golf or something. It's just not cute.
Did he go to Alabama?
No.
Oh, he seems like it.
Gross, Mark. That's mean.
Well, no, I mean, he's clearly from the South and like he just seems like an Alabama type person.
He's not one of us.
Oh, he went to Georgia, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Gross. Yeah, he's one of.
Tell you, Jason, that you hate him.
He's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
So I guess that kind of qualified as our fun topic, but we're having another fun topic for the week. I'm back on my true crime grind. I have been listening to true crime podcasts nonstop. I'm especially interested in sociopaths right now. I know that's really a hot take.
Sounds like dating wise, maybe as well, but
okay, you're not wrong, but I don't like my dirty laundry aired all over the internet. I'm really interested in learning more about sociopaths so I can spot them and flee from them. I listened to one the other day called Something Was Wrong. And I'm bringing this up because Mark has had success on dating apps. I have never been on them because of podcasts like Something Was Wrong, where a girl meets a guy. She thinks everything is right. She meets him on the dating app. This girl got engaged to the guy. And then 3 days before their wedding, she realized that something was terribly wrong, called off the wedding, and he was a sociopath. And so I can't decide.
That wasn't the Netflix guy, right? That wasn't like
different guy. Different
okay.
Guy. There's a lot of them out there.
Yes.
So here's
some
what
of them are drummers I've heard too.
What?
Some of them are drummers I've heard. I don't know.
I wish the earth would just swallow me alive. All I need to know from Mark is, am I doing the right thing by making myself aware that these men are out there and they could very easily kill me or manipulate me? Or should I just kind of be blind to reality and live a happy life, not paranoid around every corner?
I think both those are wrong. I think that just like we tell everyone else to do, it's like, why don't you actually look at the statistics, right? And if you look at it, it's probably a very, very, very small percentage of people actually do that. So knowing it's out there, but not really change your behavior. It's the same thing as gun violence, right? We say, oh, you can't walk in the street because everyone's dying, or I mean, whatever the government makes you, or COVID is going to kill every single person. It's like, you can have it both ways. And I feel like you don't have to pick one of these two exaggerations. You can say it's good to be aware of, but understand that almost nobody's like that. There is that. And if you can spot the signs, it's good, but just be realistic about it.
But like you said, I have a really bad track record. And I listened to one about Scott and Lacey Peterson the other day. And when I got out of my car, I ran from my car to the door because I'm pretty sure that Lacey was killed in her backyard after listening to this podcast. And
you're somebody who one story will make you feel like everything's like that for at least a day or two. It seems like.
Yes. There is no, I'm very extreme. It's either they're all men are sociopaths or no one is a sociopath.
Yeah, you can probably work on that a little bit, but okay.
What are some of your favorite true crime things? Are yours less scary than mine?
No, I mean, so I'm not into true crime that way. I but I'm interested in the murders, they're unsolved murders. Like Up and Vanished was a really good one. Actually, the Curtis Flowers one was super good, which is
what is that?
That was season 2 of Up and Vanished.
Oh,
but it was basically a death penalty case in Mississippi. That was this huge thing, and there's a lot of, but essentially he basically got put away and he clearly didn't do it. It was pretty obvious, but it doesn't they go through it and it actually is all in real time. And I think they just kind of something just happened like 3 months ago, like when it ended. So I would listen to that. Season
Okay.
one was good. I think season one was good because like you didn't know what happened, but and like Making a Murderer, I really enjoyed that when that came out. The Staircase. So, I mean, I like stuff like that. I like more of like the mystery. It's like, oh, did he do it? Did he not do it? Who did it if not him?
Yes. I like to go on Crime Junkies and see where it says like at the beginning of every Crime Junkies episode, they have it typed out where it says like murdered or missing or whatever. So you know what kind of the story is about. Like you know what you're kind of gonna hear. But here's another question for you, Mark. When it comes to true crime, do you prefer to watch or to listen?
Oh, that's a good question. I pay more attention when I listen. Because I
Yes.
think about details, stuff like that. It's kind of cool to have on the background while you're doing other stuff, though. But I mean, sometimes you don't catch all the details. But I think listen, because especially when you're on like a longer road trip, I mean, you can go 8 hours and like you're like, oh wow, how did I get here already? It's like that was 8 hours. I mean, and you
Right.
just listen to it cool,
Do
and
it
it's
all the time.
so yeah, I'd say listen, but close.
Same. Visual scares me. I feel like if I see it, then I can like picture it while I'm home alone and I get like more freaked out, but hearing it doesn't really do that to me as much. And my roommate was making fun of me, and this is my last question, then we'll cut it off. My
Wait, the worst thing is like the reenactments, though. That you're like those people. It makes it not scary at all because these are the worst actors in the world, and like it's so dumb. Like this is not how it went, and like it's so this guy looks ridiculous.
Yes, and that blood is clearly like strawberry jelly.
Oh
Like
yeah.
yes. Okay, this is my last question and then we'll go. But my roommate was making fun of me because she likes like scary thriller movies, but
Me too.
hates true crime. And I
Okay.
hate scary thriller movies, but love true crime. And she says that that's weird because the thriller movies could never happen and true crime already has. But my justification is, like I said earlier, that the thriller movies are just like paranormal and weird. And I would rather not entertain that in my mind, whereas the true crime has happened and I'd rather know what's out there. So, what do you think is the more logical approach? Or do you think we're both
Oh,
right?
that's a tough one, actually. So I think it's the thriller movies. I think they try to keep it out of reality, so they try to make it as crazy as possible, which is scarier because like they do things that even normal people wouldn't do to make it as scary as possible. So I
Yeah.
get you there, but it is all now there is some based on true stories, but for the most part, it's fantasy.
Yeah.
The scariest thing is a thriller that's based on a true story because they make it scarier and it's something that actually happened. So
Yes.
I'll go 50-50 on that one.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I was hoping for a tiebreaker, but Brenna and I can both be
All right.
right. We'll love that. Okay, well, now that I've gotten all my questions answered specifically about my dating life, thank you so much, Mark, for throwing that out there. Um, Stay tuned for the paper next week, the research brief coming out. We'll talk more about the Olympics, and everybody have a safe weekend. See you later.